Standing by. Waiting. Okay, good. So we should be live now. So this is the
Three
third
on three, three
three
on
on
three on three.
three
Third
on
one,
three.
three players, three
Yeah,
hosts,
three for three.
triple, triple, triple.
Yeah. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Warriors draft again, right? Or Warriors off season, and we're going to focus on each of us is going to bring three assets or ideas that the Warriors could look to go with in the off season. Um, I, I I have to say this was Al's idea, which I think was a good idea. I didn't really flesh out my third idea, so I'm gonna sort of maybe respond to what you guys say and then make that my third idea. I have my two locked in ideas are both draft prospects, so maybe my third idea should be a free agent idea. Um,
Well, that's good because I have a free agent, trade, and draft pick, so it's like plenty of that department.
right. Um, so Al, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Or do we want to do one and one and one, or
Whichever.
Yeah, let's try that. Yeah,
Let's-
one and one and one.
Okay, great. Um, Al, go first with one, and we'll just go around. We'll go Al, Niles, me, Al, Niles, me, like that.
Okay.
Al? You want to
So-
start with a draft pick?
Yeah, let's do that. So yeah, we've been talking about the idea of possibly trading down, which I think we're all kind of excited for because I think we're all in agreement that really the sweet spot of this draft is the kind of mid-lottery. And so I'm not exactly sure how best to get there. To get like, I'm right now thinking of my guys. I think projected to be somewhere between 15 and 25, taking in that range. And so I think we had knocked around a couple ideas, maybe like the Knicks have a couple picks that we could maybe trade for, or the Celtics, who are probably trying to consolidate their draft picks just in the interest of space and stuff. But yeah, so my guy that I really like, that I think a lot of draft people are kind of mixed on is Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
From Kentucky, and the theme with my vision of the Warriors picking up a third guard because secondary ball handler, but also be kind of the primary point of attack defender. And the logic of that, I guess. Well, number one, they never really had a small guy to kind of lock up the kind of opposing scoring lead guards for the other team. Like the guys who always scared me the most personally, and maybe it's just aesthetic, is like Damian Lillard and Kyrie Irving and these kind of small, explosive guards. I mean, Iguodala was great, but that probably wasn't. I don't know. You guys can disagree, but I didn't think that was like that type of player was a specialty. Whereas with my three guys, I'm kind of like that's the guy I'm trying to key in on, defensively. So without further ado, my guy is Tyrese Maxey, who I'm thinking for the Warriors in that 15 to 25 range. And I see him as someone who's kind of been overlooked in college just because he was in the Kentucky system that I don't think is totally favorable to developing guards. The guards who come out of there usually tend to exceed expectations, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I'll just close by saying that I think he projects to be kind of a good on and off ball defender. Like if you watch the tape of him, that's really hard and compete. And he has like a really kind of funky low release, but he didn't shoot that well from three, but he shot really well from the line, and I think with a little more space, especially more space, I think he could be a really good outside shooter, and he's really crafty, like with footwork left or right foot, and he can kind of finish in really crafty ways. And he's really stout. He's kind of a Kyle Lowry with a body.
Oh, that's how I wanted to ask. Do you think he, like, best case scenario for his offensive game, would it be like stout Lou Williams or something then if he's really crafty?
Yeah. I think the knock on him is that he's not like not great at setting up others. He's kind of like a get the ball and go to work kind of guy, because he's one of those guys who's like a victim of like having too many moves that he wants to try out, so he kind of can have blinders. But yeah, I would say like
or is like,
and he has Mitchell a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Maybe like not as explosive Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, he reminds me a bit of Mitchell for sure.
Catching him off balance, like catching the defender wrong footed is like his game.
Yeah. How about Lou Nasty? It's like the opposite of Sweet Lou. It's like not as Sweet Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like that kind of player is just not super my style of player, which I think is kind of what it comes down to for me. Why I don't love the idea of Maxi. What do you think, Niles, about that, Maxi?
I'm interested in it. I think I haven't watched enough of him to have an opinion on if I think his shot really is good or not. Like, because I know you're saying that, and all the draft people say like NBA people think his shot will come around. I feel like I've heard that one like 10 times.
Yeah.
I like the thinking with who he could guard. I guess one of the things I was thinking about is he big enough to guard like Harden well? So like Iguodala, I think, was great at guarding Harden. And could guard smaller people. I agree with you, wasn't his best suit, but so like if Maxi's best at guarding little people, but then could he also guard a bigger player like Doncic or something? Like what would happen on?
Yeah. I mean, Doncic is interesting because I think he could deal with Doncic kind of well because of the stoutness that Al.
Yeah, where that's what makes me think it might be good.
Yeah. Can we back up for a second?
Yeah.
Well, did you mention, because I was trying to fix your sound quality, which I failed to do, so I was kind of spacing out and turning off your phone while you were talking about the draft scenarios. Did you have a specific draft scenario by which we get to Maxi, or did you just think like some way?
I didn't. I was going to kind of leave that to you because I thought there's a couple possibilities. Just however we end up trading down, I think.
Well, Al, how about this? When is the soonest you would draft him? How high would you pick him?
So personally, I think this is where our ideologies differ, because I'm kind of more in the favor of like targeting a specific player and just kind of like figuring out, like, I don't really care about like how much extra value I pick up as long as I can get the guy that I really want,
Yeah.
But I know that's different from Jamie's ideology.
Yeah.
So
I'm like a Danny Ainge type. It's more like I want to like.
I'm more like a Travis Schlenk, and I'm slowly.
Well, but the Warriors, I think, have kind of shown to be that team, right?
Totally, which is what I'm afraid of. Yeah, I'm afraid that they're going to be like. I'm afraid that they're going to draft like Okoro at 5. They're just going to be like, no, we just like Okoro. He'd be great. Okay, boom.
Yeah, I would love that. But
yeah, totally.
I was saying, so my guy, I have kind of the same questions of I don't know where he will be picked, and I don't know quite the trade route that the Warriors would do to get the pick, but I was thinking about Paul Reed from DePaul, who's 6'9", 7'2" wingspan, and Hollinger really likes him. He's one, and and I think one of the other draft guys too also thinks he's like a way undervalued prospect because he's really good at defense.
Yeah, totally. But have you actually watched him shoot? Because
I have watched him shoot. The last time I watched it, I kind of came around. He's definitely not a supernatural looking offensive player.
Definitely not supernatural at all. Yeah.
But so I started looking. I had watched a few clips of him before, but I looked at him again because I looked up Tyler Bay, and then I thought like, oh, who's a good cross comparison?
Yeah.
And so right now, Paul Reed's mostly mocked in the early second, and then
Yeah.
occasionally goes in the late first. I think he's going to go way higher than that. I think him and Precious Achua both look pretty good, and
Yeah.
really, it started out when I was watching Tyler Bay, but then watching Paul Reed. They're pretty similar. There's lots of comparisons to Obi Toppin. Like, so with Paul Reed, he's thinner, maybe a hair taller, maybe
Taller?
He's tall. And I think he's a legit 6'9".
Okay. But he doesn't play 5 at all, right? Like whereas
He plays a little bit, but he's much more of a 4. Yeah, and he's considerably thinner than Toppin.
Yeah.
Um,
But Toppin's also like 27, so.
So Paul Reed just turned 21, so he's a little more than a year younger. But I challenge you guys to go watch a Paul Reed highlight thing.
I have.
You don't have to do it right now, but and then like it shows a lot of good offensive plays, right? Which is cherry picking because it's highlights.
Yeah.
But just if you watch that and then think about him being definitely like more than a year younger than Toppin.
Yeah.
Kind of challenge you to like think, oh, he doesn't have basically really similar upside. Like Toppin is stronger, he's more decisive with the ball. He's definitely a better passer and he's a better shooter too.
Yeah.
But they're both like not big guys, but sort of 4 or 5 offensive skill sets who rely on being really bouncy and having long arms.
It's interesting that you
say lower body.
Do you say lower body weakness for them, both of them?
Just not like super, not stout lower body. Right.
Yeah, they both seem to have kind of a thin lower body. It's interesting that you say that because I totally thought he was like a 4, but like a 3-4 more than a 4-5.
I think he's played much more as a 4-5.
Okay.
And he's got like 7'2" wingspan. He's not big enough to guard some centers, but he can protect the rim, I think.
Yeah.
And I think different than Toppin and kind of Achua, him and Achua had pretty similar like basic stats, but Paul Reed had really, really good steal and block numbers. But just different than Toppin and Achua, he's just lighter, he's skinnier, so I think he can change direction way better on the perimeter in terms of playing defense. And if you watch the highlights, I think these moves were very occasional, but there's some moves with like him doing a pretty solid looking crossover into a jump shot or something like that, like an end of shot clock. And I think you can imagine the offensive improvement there. It's very possible it'll never happen, but you can kind of see it. There's like guard kind of movement in there.
I'll have to go and watch these highlights again because one thing that jumped out at me, like you mentioned, the occasionality, like, and this is true of a lot of the people that we watch in highlights, but there'll be like the highlight will say like, "Ooh, he knocked down a 3," and then somebody's like, "Yeah, he can do that."
Yeah, that's
okay. It's like,
he shot 34% last year, but he on a very low volume, so he's totally not a confident shooter.
Yeah. I think you've got the backup of, like Hollinger and people being, but it's just for me, I kind of came around to the Tyler Bay and I would almost like, from my memory, I would almost choose Tyler Bay on a movement basis. And I'd have to go and look at them.
I think you got to check it out again. I think Bay is definitely faster, but I think he's considerably smaller.
Yeah, no, I would not. See, that's the thing is, I guess I haven't adjusted to this idea that Paul Reed could play 5 because I just see both of them as like a 3-4 type of thing.
Like a little bit Jaren Jackson. Maybe like
a little smaller, a little faster, I think. But yeah, and less touch, I think. Jaren Jackson's got nice touch.
That comparison baffles me because I mean, again, I guess I'll just have to go and watch more Paul Reed.
He's bigger than you think. He's bigger than you think.
But when I see Jaren Jackson, I see like, just like sort of like oodles of physical presence. Like he's like sort of confused. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's like.
But he looks big too.
Yeah. Like I like.
And their shot is kind of similar.
he's got that kind of flick shot, but
Yeah,
Jaren Jackson does.
I don't think they have similar shots at all because Jared Jackson's got that weird kind of like full body flick shot that's like
right.
that only works because he's a big man, so nobody like gets up in his face. And then like to me, the Paul Reed shot was like this weird kind of herky jerk, like kind of I don't like
It's
weird.
not, yeah. I think it's like a Draft Junkies one on YouTube.
Yeah.
It has some decent looking. I think it looks decent. It's low, but it's
Okay.
okay.
We're getting into
But
the weeds here.
yeah, yeah.
I respect your
So
suggestion.
anyway, like I think if the Warriors could get him, say, with the Clippers pick in a New York trade at 26, that would be awesome.
27.
27.
Yeah.
But I just was thinking about it, and then I kind of think he's actually should be like, I don't know, he's in like 12 to 20 for me or something is my range for him. So if he falls, obviously that'd be cool. But I was realizing, like, if the Warriors say we're starting with the fifth pick and traded down to, even with like the Spurs, to 11, like maybe Toppin's still there, and I think I might take Toppin over him if it's at 11. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe I might actually be okay with that pick there.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I'm reaching a little bit.
yeah. So to me, uh, I really like the idea of him at like 27. Or if you know, if they did this like weird Celtics thing where they traded their pick for all three Celtics picks, which I actually saw a Celtics fan suggesting on YouTube.
Oh,
And I was
yeah,
like,
like
hey, we'll do it. No, but
well, talk to Bob, you talk to Danny, let's make it happen.
I mean, so I actually want to touch on that Celtics thing at some point, but like in that scenario where it's like a 26, 27, or 30, uh, I like the idea of Paul Reed for sure. I think hopefully we'll get into this a bit, but I think there's just so many good people in that middle of the draft that like I can't see myself really taking, well, even if I like Paul Reed when I go and watch him, I can't see myself taking him over all the other people's like Vassell, um, Sadiq Bey, all
That was gonna go really high. I think Vassell's top 10 for sure.
yeah, probably, but I'm just saying
Seems like it, but
there's Neesmith, for me, Kyra
sure.
Lewis.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like there's just numerous dudes that I would be pretty excited about in that middle that I think I would choose all day over
yeah,
somebody like Woodard or Paul Reed or somebody,
yeah.
right?
I think like Al, but at a different position. I was mostly thinking I think Reed could be a really impact defender, and I think that would be big for the team. That was my main.
Yeah,
But I totally hear you.
yeah,
You want to
cool.
do one of yours, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Quick night. So do you guys like the idea of, so like who would he guard against? How would he like factor in a series against like the Lakers today? Like who would he
I
guard?
think
What lineups would he be guard of?
probably
JaVale McGee.
like you could put him. He could against the Lakers. It'd work pretty well. I think he could play center against him, McGee, because McGee's not good at posting up. Really, he's
Right.
a vertical threat, which I think could contend against. And Reed would be really valuable on switches out of the, like if they're running screen and roll with McGee. And I think there's a possibility he could. There's a possibility he can guard Anthony Davis too. Like
Yeah.
he'd be Davis would overpower him. Could do like a slow post up on him, but that would, like I was even trying to imagine him and Green playing together, which obviously Green would have to be shooting the three decently, but then you'd have this really dynamic, athletic front court defense.
Right. And he
Maybe.
could run the floor for Green, right?
Yeah,
I mean, to me, he would just make the offense ugly though. It'd be like, I mean,
yeah.
but yeah, okay.
More realistically, though, like as a rookie and second year player, like playing 15 minutes, because like basically just Pascal's strong guy, he's long guy.
Yeah. Are you in the place where you've got your best internet? Because your internet sucks right now, Eli.
Mm,
More or less.
let me switch over here.
Cam, you still there?
I'm here. Hey,
Okay,
Dalsy.
I swear it works.
James, do you want to go? Now, can you hear James?
Hello, Niles.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go ahead. Um,
Jamie, sorry, can you hold on one second?
sure. It's okay.
Murmurings from the little one.
Uh-huh. So I'm going to start with kind of one of my lower key things that was a follow-up to our text chain from earlier. I sent that text about how I was suddenly into Tyler Bay, right? Um, so my first focus for today is on Jalen Smith from Maryland. Um, and I think he's just funny to me because he was like one of the few people in the first round that I was like, nope, no interest in that guy. And I think it's just that I just read like the profile for him and I was like, okay, energy, power forward, get him out. Like I don't like we don't need that, right? Like we've got Pascal, we've got Draymond. I don't need an energy power forward. Uh but then I kind of watched him and he's definitely a five in the kind of Warriors system, right? Um and so that kind of changed it for me because uh, I've been thinking about ways to get a big man and a not big man simultaneously in the draft, right? So one of the ways to do that is to use the exception and get somebody that's good that way. Like I don't know, like Rubio would be an expensive version, but somebody like that. Another way would be to actually create two picks, like we're discussing with the Knicks trade or a Celtics trade, which would be two or three picks. Or this, my sort of fantasy idea was doing a three team trade with Minnesota and Orlando, where Orlando gets like the first or second pick that the Warriors would have in this scenario, and Minnesota gets Aaron Gordon, and the Warriors get Minnesota's pick and Orlando's 15th pick, which would be like ridiculous. It's like sort of infeasible. But if you imagine getting the fifth pick and the 15th pick, then it's like okay, you're getting two guys, and you kind of want to, in my view, you kind of want them to balance. Like you want to get a big guy, and you want to get either a wing or a small guy. Um,
Who's Orlando moving up for there?
Edwards. Because they like long people and they're like, oh yeah, he's going to be a scorer. It's going to be great. Um, so, but I'm going to ignore that scenario. I think the Jalen Smith scenario is more like in the scenario we've been talking about with the Knicks or like the Celtics, where if you have a late round, first round pick and he's still around, he's projected in kind of mid to late first round for the most part. Um, I think he's like squarely the fourth best big man in the draft, and I could definitely make a case that he's like just better than Toppin, like just that I would just absolutely take him over Toppin at this
The
point.
top in the street.
Yeah, so basically the way that I would currently rank it is I've succumbed to Niles and many other people's view that Onyeka Okongwu is like the best one, kind of for the Warriors and in general. Um, and then Wiseman and then Toppin and then Jalen Smith. Um, I think that I think the comparison between Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Smith is what interests me because um, I kind of was looking at him as a possible kind of homeless man or poor man's Okongwu because um, the basically he moves quite well, but not as well as Okongwu does. He's kind of similar, listed at 6'10", looks pretty big, but kind of like not super heavy in the lower body, like we were talking about with a lot of these guys, right? Um,
So
and
like could those guys guard like Jonas Valanciunas? Not that those guys are super.
yeah, so I'm gonna try something just for the heck of it. So I'm gonna try to play silent Jalen Smith highlights while I talk to you. Hold on, see if I can
Oh,
do
good.
that. Hold on. try to see if I can do that. Okay, so can you see it here? Okay. So
Yeah.
can you hear me talking as well?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so like there, just kind of a quick, but like what you'll see is he just kind of does these, basic roles, and he has this agility, like in the Kongwu, to kind of adjust on the fly. What I really like about some of his highlights is that he shows hand strength, like a confidence in traffic to finish and organize, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think based on his statistics, like basically Okongwu is like already ahead of him as a freshman in some regards, and Jalen Smith is a kind of normal aged sophomore. But the thing about Jalen Smith though is like he can do something that Okongwu hasn't even tried to do, which you'll see in a bit, namely shoot. And he's actually quite good at it. He's very comfortable going out to the 3-point line and knocking down threes. And then he also has the ability to, up fake or whatever, and then go in from the 3-point line. And that's the thing that I feel like I just watched this Mike Schmitz with Okongwu, where Okongwu talks here, he's going to shoot here, bang. So where Okongwu talks about how he's eventually going to develop 3-point range, and that's probably true, but there's just something about the fact that he doesn't even try that kind of alarms me. It's like you could use it, you could look at it two ways. Like Okongwu just does what he needs to do, which is good. Or you could say like, okay, why is it? Because like if you look at the ability in college, particularly for an athletic big man to stretch to the three, is always going to be super useful because somebody that like a bigger white guy can't guard these athletic dudes out there. So if you have the ability to stretch to the three, you would think that in college you would use that ability. So that's why I'm a little bit baffled by Okongwu's sort of like lack of interest. He shot 4 threes on the year, made 1 out of 4. Whereas in his freshman year, Jalen Smith shot about 26%, which is bad. But he shot about 2.2 per game, and then now he's up to like 2.7 for his second year, which is nothing huge, but it's solid. And he's shooting 36%. So he kind of figured it out.
It looks pretty good. Like it looks like he might take a while to adjust to the Pro 3, but it looks pretty nice.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the share here. So my view of him is like he reminds me of somebody like a Kongwu. He reminds me of like a kind of skinny, peefy Dwight Howard, say, where he has like a bit of a too much like load up time, where it's like he's cool, but it's like a little bit like her,
Yeah.
which was Dwight's thing too, where he's like styly, but it's a little bit like too much.
Yeah.
But the thing is, of course, that like Jalen Smith shoots 75% from the free throw line and can shoot threes, which is completely different than somebody like Howard.
He's a little bit like Brooke Lopez, like small, slightly lighter Brooke Lopez.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I've also seen Ibaka, and he's probably
Yeah.
a little bit less strong and athletic than Ibaka.
Yeah. When Ibaka was young, he was really fast.
Yeah, he was awesome. He's a beast. And I also think as a comparison point, this is my personal one. I was like, okay, there's a little bit of Dwight Howard, except obviously not, and there's a lot of Gorgie Jang. So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like he's like a cross between Dwight Howard and Gorgie Jang, which is a funny combo. But he's kind of like a meet in the middle of the two of those guys.
I like the concept. Like I could see him on the Warriors.
Yeah.
I do. I'm really curious, like to see the Warriors play with a good pick and pop big guy.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Dave's the last pick and pop guy we had. David West, I guess.
What about the Dragon?
Yeah, David West from the short one, from the mid range.
17 foot.
And David Lee, same thing too, like the 18-footer.
But yeah, so I feel like the idea would be that would be your second pick in the draft, right? That you would, or like your second best asset. So you either like trade down to get a good player and that draft pick, or you get two draft picks, and that's your second best asset would be him, and your first best asset would be either a wing or a guard, and you would be like, okay, now we've got like a kind of solid move towards the bench. So
Yeah.
that's the concept.
So, Jamie, how high would you take him?
That's a good question, right? So let's say hypothetically, can you hear me? I'm hearing a lot of okay. Uh Hypothetically, if in the ideal scenario that I imagined where they would get like the fifth pick and the 15th pick, I'm hearing feedback. It's weird. Um, I would consider it. It's like, but the thing is, there's so many intriguing wings in the middle of the draft. We already talked about Sadiq Bey, Vassell, or Vassell, Neesmith, but also people like I've really changed my kind of, or I've come around and owned the idea that I really like Patrick Williams. Um, I think Patrick Williams would take a long time to develop, maybe, but I think he, rather than like Okoro or Sadiq Bey, I think he's the dude that's like sort of Kawhi Leonard lurking in the mix. He's super this being Patrick Williams, super young. He's his, August 6th birthday. He's still 18. A
Thank you,
Leo.
right?
Yeah, almost, right. It's 2 days after Niles.
Yeah.
Um Niles, are you there by the way? Because you're frozen. Okay, he's gone. Hey Nile. Hey. Can you hear us, Niles? Niles.
Okay, now I can see you.
Okay,
Sorry,
cool.
I got bumped off there.
Okay, can you hear
I
us as
can't
well?
see Al yet, but
Okay.
Right.
I can hear you. I can't hear Al.
Okay. Um,
Um,
okay, you might be back. Let's just try this, okay? You might be back. Anyway,
sorry, I'm switching networks.
okay.
And do you want to continue talking about Patrick Williams?
Yeah. Nile, I don't know if you heard, but I was talking about Patrick Williams and like just
Oh, is he your Kawhi lurking?
yeah, yeah. It's because he's very young, and he when I watched a number of Florida State games to scout Vassell today this year. Like I watched the majority of the game, right? And I actually was less impressed with Vassell than I thought I was going to be. Like I was really impressed with Vassell's off-ball defense, but he presents some of the question marks that we've talked about with Vassell, where it's like, okay, is he really going to be a dynamic player or is he just going to be kind of a nice secondary role player, right? Um, and but I was really impressed with Patrick Williams, who I hadn't heard of before. I was like, who is this guy? And I think Patrick Williams is kind of going up the boards now.
Yeah.
And I think he's just somebody that I thought was a four. Again, this like energy four thing where I'm like dismissed because you're an energy four. And I think he is a four in the modern game for the most part. But I think he's got more skill and more potential for skill. His shot's really nice, kind of high arcing shot. Um, he shoots good free throw percentage. So I think he's like somebody. Anyway, the point is, there's a lot of wings there, a lot of people in the middle of the draft that I would be hesitant to dismiss and get Jalen Smith instead, right? So I would consider, like, let's say that they got the fifth pick and the 15th pick. I would consider drafting Halliburton five or Ball if he was there, and then drafting Jalen Smith as like a pair. But I think more likely I would draft a wing like Okoro or Vassell or et cetera, in that spot. So I think probably it's somewhere in the 20s, right? Like if you imagine them trading with the Knicks, right? And you're sitting at 20 27, and let's say that he's like available at like uh 23 for the Heat, but the Heat don't really want somebody like that, you think? Maybe maybe trade a second round pick to get down to the Heat at 23. So something like that. So like in the 20s.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it.
That's my first.
And so you're thinking he would be like the backup five, kind of?
Yeah. So yeah, he
Where
would
would he be
definitely
in the rotation?
yeah, he would be the backup five to Chris. I mean, if you brought in somebody like Marcus Gasol or something, that would totally mix things up. But
I think you
otherwise,
threw that in.
yeah,
In
it's
case
man.
somehow, got someone like
Yeah, or somebody that Niles is going to talk about later,
uh,
who might be another foreigner. Um, so it's a tease. Um, anyway, so like, but so, like, because I think the thing is that like Okongwu, to go back to Okongwu for a second, the reason I'm hesitant, one of the reasons I'm hesitant on Okongwu is I think that he'd be great to have on the team. Like you're not going to suffer from having a Okongwu on the team, right? But I think that personally, me and I think the Warriors feel similarly. I'm not willing to give up on Marquise Chris. Like I like Marquise Chris a lot, and so for me, I'm not looking to like get Marquise Chris out of the rotation. And so I think for me, I'm imagining the big, unless the big is a totally different style of big, I'm imagining that the big that you bring in is a backup. And so for me, the idea of sort of being like the one thing I'm going to get in this draft is going to be my backup center. I just don't love that idea. Or like the
yeah.
one thing I'm going to do is like find a way to replace Marquise Chris. Like that. So like if you're like
I think I noticed this as a pattern with you. It's like an endearing quality that you're hyper loyal to the kind of the players who are on this current version of the Warriors. Who are like fun and scrappy, but yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I hear your point, but it's also I think it's worth noting that
a
this
pattern.
is
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so for sure. But I think it's not just loyalty. I think I definitely have that streak in me, but it's also a sense of like maximizing resource, right? And
right.
I think like there's totally different ways of doing this. One is like you just want to get the best players and you put them together and you like we work it out, right? Versus like kind of finding a way to really put yourself over the top or like like and I tend to be in that mode where I'm trying to think either I want to kind of go broad and I want to get a lot of decent assets, or I want to like find one that's going to do something that's going to feel a bit different, right? And that will
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So
like, and for Boston, Daniel Tice had a totally good year. I mean, like, showed he was a good player, but like, no one thought Daniel Tice was, like, so just I think and that's sort of the consensus, right? That the center position can be filled by lots of different ways.
yeah,
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 but I feel like not every team has that luxury. So I think Boston's great because they have a bunch of really like long wings and
Yeah.
Houston too. It's like yeah, they don't have a traditional center, but they got a bunch of guys who are like, really like strong and stout.
Yeah. One of the things you guys are saying, in a similar vein, I have been getting higher on Wiseman, kind of for the reason that he is just different. Like
yeah,
he's not 6'9", he's not, it's like he's huge.
totally.
So it actually is a different. I think it's like quite likely he doesn't amount to being much of a player, but he brings that potential.
Yeah.
But that brings me to then I'll do Baines. Maybe I'll go back down and then Al can do a double.
Your mid-level exception guy, man?
Yeah, all of Australia. Yeah, so the thought was I think there's a decent chance Phoenix pays him more than the mid-level.
I don't know.
But probably pandemic style, Sarver has a history of being cheap. Decent chance not, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't need a center, certainly with Ayton. And I was just thinking about like the Pachulia thing, like Steve Kerr's happy to have centers who just set tons of screens, play solid defense, do like handoffs and stuff. I think
Break
Baines
people's bodies in some way.
hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Baines fits all that perfectly. And he's played it for the Spurs. He's played for Boston. He's played with really functioning teams.
Yeah.
I think he would fit right into the Warriors' offense.
Do you think you can play more than like 25 minutes a game?
No, that's
No.
the downside. It's a real kind of conservative ad, but I think he would be better than Chris. I really like Chris too. I want Chris to do well, but in terms of he could give them 20 really solid minutes, I think.
Yeah.
So it's not a big step up, but it's a definite step up, I think.
Yeah.
And he's been shooting more threes, shooting a pretty decent percentage.
But if you watch it, it's ugly. It's like sometimes it's really nice, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's
sometimes he
really
like
like, what
just
the
straight
fuck?
airballs it.
Yeah,
He'll
yeah,
be way off sometimes.
yeah.
But he's like better Pachulia. He's like considerably better, and they need someone to be better than Pachulia because Pachulia existed with Durant.
Right.
But I think he's considerably better than end of the road Pachulia was.
Yeah.
But fills a very similar kind of role.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
Separate note. So if we get one of these other mid-level exception guys we're going to propose, does that mean that that's going to be instead of playing Robinson and third? Could we get
Yeah.
it for less?
Yeah.
Probably.
Well,
I mean,
and just by the way, like if they could sign Gasol for the mid-level, yes.
right.
But I think the Raptors will pay him considerably more than that.
Right.
I agree.
The
I agree.
Raptors, they use their best defender. So I think he's like overvalued by their organization. Others,
But he would be great for the Warriors, I think. Like he might not finish games.
wants a ring.
He already won. So
Right.
No, yeah. So I don't think he will because I think
Yeah.
he likes the Raptors, and so he'll just stay.
yeah.
But
Yeah, emotionally, I don't see him coming over to the Warriors, unless maybe the Warriors went really expensive and got Rubio, and then Rubio could be like, "Hey, buddy, let's hang out." That would be like one of my reasons for getting Rubio. Be like, come on, maybe you can get Gasol to come.
okay, but so guys, in response to Baines, do either of you have a center candidate who you think could step in and be better than him?
A free agent center.
Not even free agent, just like a realistically acquirable. Maybe it's Wiseman. Maybe it's whoever else.
I like the idea of Harry Giles. But James, you take exception to that he's a center, right? Or I didn't really understand your critique of Harry Giles. Or
He's not that good. That's my critique.
But he's like a great interior passer. I mean, or fun interior passer. Yeah.
You mean like
Okay.
in his soul? Like interiorly, he's a great passer.
But Al, so I'm saying next year, who's going to be better? Harry Giles is not going to be better than Aaron
He's
Baines,
not going to be bad.
right?
Yeah, I have an optimistic view of it.
Harry Giles barely got run on the horrible Kings, which is not to say he can't become a good player, but he's not going to be a really solid player next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would take Harry Giles at the minimum. I would totally like.
Me too. I'd be stoked. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think he's a good addition, but like there's no way that I'm like really like putting any eggs in that basket.
I would agree with that because then at the minimum he's good competition for Chris. But
yeah,
well, they've also been rumored to be interested in Robin Lopez for a while too. I don't know if he'd be better than Baines, but they could get him really cheap.
Robin Lopez is gonna opt into his option, right, and just stay on the Bucks.
I think because it's like $5 million.
Yeah, he has an option. I think he's just gonna opt in.
But anyway, Al, I would say I like Lopez, but I would say Baines is a little better at this point, in my opinion. I think he's a little crisper. He has less length, but I think is a little more functional offensively.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking of Jalen Smith as kind of being a little bit comparable to Baines because they both have this like slightly questionable but like shooting ability. But obviously Baines is a banger and like an enforcer and kind of just a physical presence in a way that Jalen Smith wouldn't be. Yeah,
exactly. I think one of the things the Warriors don't have that's only relevant against a few teams, but is like someone who's not going to get totally washed out against Embiid or someone like that.
right.
And Baines is obviously not perfect to guard Embiid, but at least he can hold up to him strength wise.
Right. One thing we had discussed a long time ago was the idea of drafting Azubuike in the second round
Yeah,
as like a pure like you're just gonna hang out on the bench until we need a big guy.
he's Felton Spencer, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
just 6 fouls against a big guy,
Yeah, because he sucks at free throws. Like there's no way I'm like, but he
but
plays
he's fucking huge. Yeah,
yeah, and he's yeah. Um, so like he would be an example of like a young Baines, if you will. Um, but
Al,
I
who's
mean,
your second guy?
So my mid-level exception guy was Avery Bradley, and he's just kind of I don't even know he had an option with the Lakers and he might pick up. Like I could see that unless the Lakers decide they want to go after someone else with that money, which I don't know who that would be, but he's just like still probably the best like point of attack defender in the league, even though he's kind of like average and subpar and everything else. But just like having that guy, I really like the idea of like just kind of just thinking through like what the Warriors could add is just the kind of giving them like a mismatch potential. It's like to have like a 3 guard lineup like that where you have Steph, Clay, him, you know, where it's just gonna force the other team to kind of go small, you know, and then you have different looks. Like you have Avery Bradley, like just kind of like pound texturing the ball everywhere, and then you have Clay or Wiggins or whoever switching, you know, Draymond. You just
Al,
have really, yeah.
do you know what he shot from 3 this year?
I think it was 35%. I think
Oh.
I'll look it up. Hold on, I'll look
Kind
it
of
up.
average bat,
I think he's like an
mediocre.
average shooter.
Yeah,
I think those numbers just go up with the second play.
but I like the thinking of just like you're saying, having someone who's really good on the ball.
Yeah, he shot 36%. So on 3, 36.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has decent value in terms of that he could play with Thompson, he could play with Wiggins. You know, like so he could functionally fill a bunch of minutes, I think.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have with it is just his contract, which is he's got the option for 5 million, and I don't see him opting out in order to get an extra 0.8 million.
Yeah, like unless he thinks LeBron's a jerk or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't see him doing that. But I
But
guess
the Lakers might want to go in a different direction too. I mean, that's,
no,
I guess
it's not their Al, it's not their
Oh, it's his option.
It's his option. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I think
Yeah,
that logic's pretty good, Jim. But
Yeah.
but I would be into it. I think how about so Baines versus Bradley? I think Bradley would be preferable to me.
Yeah. I
But
think my whole thing is again,
kind of close.
yeah, it's like for me it's like puzzle pieces. It's like it depends what else you got, really, right? Because they're like if you drafted, for example, if you Al were the GM and you drafted Maxi and then picked up you know
yeah.
Avery Bradley, I would be like, fuck you, what are you doing?
Well, no,
Right.
but he wouldn't though. That it's like then that's when you would draft Maxi and get Baines, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Right.
about the
My 3 guys are kind of not as part of the same vision. There's 3 different options. And,
totally.
yeah.
Totally. Cool. So yeah, so I like Avery Bradley, but I think I don't think it's very likely, right? But I think like what you're saying, like you've been into Marcus Smart for a while, and he is that third guard who can kind of play with the other guards, create like a defensive minded.
I don't think he's anywhere near the same kind of team defender as Smart, but
Yeah.
I get what you're
Mark's probably
saying.
the best in the league.
Yeah.
Well, but I guess I'm just kind of thinking of like the Thunder, where you can have like you can just experiment with 3 guard lineups where it's like you know Chris Paul is great and or Curry can be in that Chris Paul role where it's like they're on the weakest of the 3 wings or the 3 guards or wings. And then,
But Chris Paul's a different kind of defender than Curry. Like Curry's got obviously moments defensively, but Chris Paul is like such a pain and he's so strong
Right.
that
Yeah, that people
But he
don't
doesn't
want to
have
post
to
them
do
up.
much, but he can.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
but because he's so annoying, I think teams aren't going to like post up their
yeah. And
so
just like
crappy wing,
gonna like punch them in the nuts and like and or like threaten to take away their contracts in like
Yeah.
union negotiations or whatever he does. Yeah. Um, but and
But
also like using the Thunder as like a positive example is really sketchy also. Just like
Well, but
Hugen's
I
Dort.
just I think it's a good, or just the kind of mentality of just going all too small.
Well, yeah, no, I think the Thunder's example is a kind of cool use of resources. Like they had a couple offensive guards, and Alexander is obviously showing a lot of defensive promise too. But then they put in Dort, who's like a total zero on offense,
None of
they
those
love to
guys
do
but
that.
shoot.
It's like
but is really versatile as a defender. So
yeah,
they spread it around, and like you were saying, like they just put Paul on the right. Like they just pick. They like get a lot of options for how they match up. And so they, I mean, Dort was undrafted, right? Or end of the second round or
yeah,
undrafted.
the second round I think. But yeah.
They engineered that.
So just like garbage on offense, but good enough on, like, so it's creative.
Yeah. I mean, like, and I was thinking with Tyler Bay, I was totally comparing him in my head to Roberson, right? I was like this, that's like your kind of basis for somebody like that. You say, okay, it's just somebody that you can bring in to be a really good defender, right? Which is good.
Yeah.
So I support that.
James, do you want to do another one?
Yeah. Or unless you want to go. You want to go?
I think we've all done two, except you, right?
Right. So I'll
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, you just do another one.
Cool. Um, so I'm gonna do Danny Avdia, um, which is part of an ongoing discussion with Al, where Al's just like, why? Uh, and so,
None of those there.
so I would try to address that. Um, yeah, so but I want in the context of kind of talking a bit more about the scenarios of the draft a little bit too, right? I think that again, my ideal scenario is getting two players, and in that scenario, I like the idea of kind of diversifying, right? Like you get like a big man and a like a Jalen Smith or whatever, um, and you get a a role player type wing, or you get like somebody like Kyra Lewis or something. But in a scenario where you only get the one player, like they don't really get a trade or they get a minimal trade where there's like a pick thrown in or something, and you're getting one player for next year. Um, or in a scenario also like the Knicks, like if they got the Knicks pick at 6 and then if they didn't know what was going to come on the 27th, in those scenarios, I'm pretty damn interested in Avdia. I think, like, if they were just sitting at 5, no one would trade with them, and either Edwards or Ball were still available. Even though I don't think they're great fits, I would definitely be interested in those guys just because like the amount of talent they have. So like, if you're sitting there at 5, Ball's still available, everyone's like, "F you, we know you're not going to take Ball." I'd be like, actually, this would be kind of interesting. And
But
kind
that's
of like not
unlikely.
totally, and
Uh,
because even if he was there, you could probably trade him, right? You could probably trade with the Knicks or whatever. Um, uh, and like you were saying, Neil, I'm also into the idea of getting Wiseman as a guy with potential, guy who's something different. But I think for me, my kind of favorite, just like one-off guy, or again to get the Knicks 6 pick would be Avdia. Um, the way I see Avdia uh, is this kind of he's got a mix of skills, right? So instead of getting big man and a wing or a big man and a little guy, you get guy who can kind of do a couple different things and can kind of mix in, and he's not going to blow you away, but he's going to, in my opinion, be a kind of, I would say, dynamic role player. So like somebody like Vassell or even like Neesmith, I just hesitate to pick them at a high pick because I think that there's a pretty good chance they're just going to be doing kind of their thing. In Vassell's case, it'd be like defense with a little bit of three. In Neesmith's case, it'd be like a lot of three. Um, but I think that for me, I would want somebody that I would almost want somebody that would be a little bit more nerve-wracking. Like I guess that's part of why I like Avdia or somebody like Wiseman is I'd almost like embrace the is it going to work out? Is it not going to work out? If you're going to get like the one pick, I don't want to just be like safe, pick somebody that I think will fit in and be like, let's see, let's get somebody that might be kind of interesting. And I think Avdia's role, he would be, well, let's talk about comparison since Ali brought this up, right? Um, so the most obvious thing to do is to compare him to Euros or white people. Um, and I think that's actually reasonably valid just because of kind of like athleticism style, right? Like it's not about like who's more athletic, but it's just like the way that you're athletic. There's a certain commonality with among non-African American or African players, I guess. I mean, yeah, it's awkward, but like, so I think there's a certain validity. There's a certain validity there. But to do some cross comparisons, I actually on the low end, I thought of so I liked some of the ones that you brought up. Like for example, Siakam is just a better athlete, right? Like, but
Oh, for sure.
but there is a certain style of like aggressive attacking transition that is definitely true of Avdia. So I really like that one. But I would say like something like on a lower end, something like Justice Winslow, where Winslow like he doesn't have like smooth handle, but it works, and he kind of just like attacks people, and then he's got the ability to distribute, and he really can't shoot, which is
Yeah.
like the
Well, and
worst.
like Winslow got hyped as being, I feel like he got hyped at least as being like a real explosive athlete, but it doesn't show a ton in games.
Right, right.
He's more just strong and he's a
Totally.
pretty good athlete.
Totally.
Yeah.
And he's longer than Avdia, but it's still the style of watching him play. It's like he just kind of bullies people a little bit and gets around them barely and then does whatever. Um, I'm way more optimistic about Avdia's shooting than I think most people are. Um, I think that if it wasn't for his three throw percentage and it wasn't for the kind of stat head fixation on the projectability of that, he like there would be a lot more people into him. I
Yeah.
think I think that he's like kind of hitting the wrong moment or the wrong niche where everyone's like looking at that and being like, if you were just shooting at 75%, I would love you, but because you're shooting inconsistencies
Yeah.
from three and you're doing that, that means like it's real and there's a problem. And I think um I just from looking at his form, I don't think there's a problem. I think he's never going to be a great shooter, but I don't think he's a bad shooter. Um,
Yeah, I do like if just watching highlights, sorry, Al. Just watching highlights, if I didn't know the free throw thing, I'd think like, oh, streaky, but probably a okay shooter.
Right.
right,
Could become a pretty okay shooter.
right. And so I think there are some dudes that just kind of aren't great at the idea of standing still on the free throw line.
I mean,
And
LeBron's a lot like that.
yeah, and it's actually as
He's
a
not a great 3-point shooter either, but he's definitely become someone
yeah.
who can make big threes.
So that was actually one of my humorous comparisons was LeBron. He's he's like he's very similar physically to LeBron, except that LeBron is way more athletic, like by miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. But they're both like 6'8",
That's
6'9".
good. Yeah. I would say actually exactly.
Yeah, they're both 6'8", 6'9". Avdia is like kind of built. He's like quite physical, quite strong. Um, for a 19-year-old especially. So I think and I can kind of almost see the like almost like see them matching up in my head and it kind of working out in Avdia's favor. Not in the sense that like he could go by him, but just in the sense that when LeBron is trying to go by Avdia, I could see Avdia being somebody that would like surprise LeBron and kind of annoy LeBron. Like where it would just be like not quite as easy as LeBron would expect. So like, like if you're imagining like Abdia guarding Paul George or LeBron, Kawhi I think would torture Abdia because Kawhi is just too skilled. He's just like too,
Right.
he's like too like in a bag. So I could just see him just being an absolute just
How
destroying.
about for a cross-racial comparison, Mike Dunleavy Jr.?
Cross-racial?
No, it's just stupid. But for like an all-around skills, he's got just for like a horrible Warriors pick, like he's
But he
got
was a
this.
good shooter, right?
No, he
At
never
least.
was. He just looked like he should be because he was freaking Mike Dunleavy Jr.
Yeah. Yeah. He always
At
was
the
he's always frustrating. Yeah.
at the end of his career, he shot good percentages, but when he was on the Warriors, totally not good
Yeah.
percentages.
Yeah. That's a great comparison. Except for I think one essential thing, which is like the kind of energy that they bring to the game,
Right.
which is
Higher.
Iron Mike did not bring the strong energy.
yeah, which is it's just totally, totally, totally different. And also defense. So I just to quickly jump into some more comparisons. And I'm sorry, I'll make this as quick as I can because I've been thinking about this a lot. I wrote like I've been watching this video, Locked On Fantasy by this Australian guy, and he did an in-depth dive on
Lockdown
Avdia.
fantasy.
Locked On Fantasy. Um, it's not dirty. It's basketball. Uh, and he like basically he's pretty much pessimistic about everybody, which I kind of like. Like he sort of his view is like everybody's okay, and so his highlight or the way he like titles his videos is like, can this person be a star? And then he doesn't address the question, but he's sort of just like meh, which
Yeah.
like like so it's like that's how he does it with all of them. But I was just like responding to him and sort of saying like I think that like I agree with most of his points, but I think that I wrote a comment. I think that he's like that Abdia is more like better than he thinks, basically. Like one of the comparisons that I wanted to draw up really quickly, again, really stupid comparison athletically, but is Iguodala because they're both really smart players in my opinion, who can't shoot free throws and are like kind of adequate at 3-point shooting. And I think that's one kind of area that I could see Abdia really projecting that way, where like I think personally he's going to figure out how to shoot 3 throws and be okay at 3-point shooting, but I could see a scenario where he shoots like like 32% from three, shoots like 59% from free throw, but is still kind of a useful player. Um, because of his like ability to kind of know where things are happening, and where he needs to be. Um, really
I
quickly,
could definitely imagine him being good on offense on the Warriors. Just the Iguodala's strength and wingspan are so amazing that to compare him to
yeah,
Iguodala is like can't do it.
I can't do it. Another comparison that I'm curious what you guys think about it. I actually quite like this comparison. Is Gordon Hayward, white man. The thing is, like, I was a big fan of Gordon Hayward in college, right? We all were because it was like that. That
40% free throws.
huh?
40?
What? Al? Al? Bye, Al. Hey, Al.
Did you say Gordon Hayward is a 40% free throw shooter?
Al, what did you say?
A 3-point shooter.
Okay, yeah. So this is the point that I wanted to make.
And a 3-point.
Thank you for bringing it up because this is exactly the point that I wanted to make. So Gordon Hayward throughout his career has been a good free throw shooter, which is the big difference between them. Like there was never any indication that Gordon Hayward wasn't going to shoot free throws really well, right? But I was a big fan of Gordon Hayward in college, as I think we all were, because he's like just like, oh, this white guy could actually make it. He could like redeem Adam Morrison or whatever, right? Um, and the thing is, I remember looking at his stats in college, his sophomore year, he was effing atrocious at shooting threes. If you go and look it up, he shot 29% from three, Gordon Hayward did, as a sophomore, which was like, when he before he came out. Um, and I think, and his freshman year was pretty good, but he didn't statistically he wasn't like an amazing percentage guy in college, and then like when he came out, he sort of figured it out, and I think like size wise, they're kind of
What was his
similar.
free throw
Right? No, I said that's what I said. There's a big difference in their
percentage?
free throw percentage. It was great. Gordon Hayward's always been able to shoot free throws. Um, like he's always been at like the high 70s or whatever. Um, but so
Kawhi
there's
Leonard, though.
I'm sorry.
Kawhi Leonard loves that example too, where he was an atrocious three-point shooter that shot really low from the line.
Yeah. Um, so obviously there's a difference there, right? But the style of athleticism where they've got good handle but not great handle. I think, clearly Gordon Hayward has better, if you're looking at Gordon Hayward now especially, but even in college, he's got like a smoother handle than Avdia has. But Avdia's handle works. It's like functional, and he attacks with it. He's like
Yeah,
transitioning.
I think because like Gordon Hayward is a freshman, I'd say because that's probably age comparison, right?
Yeah.
Is Gordon Hayward as a freshman?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Um, in terms of the role on the Warriors, right? I think. Sorry. Okay. There's just so much. I apologize. So, defense, defense wise, I think is really intriguing because you get people saying he's a great defender, and you get people saying like, oh, he's terrible. He's going to get exposed. And I think that we'll see how this goes, but I believe that that's going to carry over into the league, where like even 3 years down the line, you'll get people like in the same game, like Reggie Miller is going to be like, oh, like he's being guarded by Abdia, he should take him, and then meanwhile, like Kevin Harlan's going to be like, well, the Warriors really like Abdia's defense, like I think like you're gonna see those things like simultaneously happen because it's like this and it's partly a racial thing of like the stereotype of the white defender, um right, but I also think it's what he's doing, and I think this is kind of taken from Mike Schmitz, but I think it's just like it's also taken from this Locked On Fantasy guy. I think it's like universal if you watch what he does. His main skill on offense and defense is moving around within the context of the other players on the court. So his best skill is anticipation, really, and like so he's very good team defender, help defender. Once he gets there, he may or may not be able to do anything cool. Like he's not going to block shots, right? So like hopefully he can be a guy that like yeah he learned recently how to like do verticality where he like can be like just like straight up and physical. Hopefully he can be taking charges, but his ability to rotate, he can like really anticipate really well. And then similarly on offense, his like main skill is being able to be like aggressively cut. And I think that's something that gets a little bit underlooked when everyone's talking about him. It's like he's not Doncic. Like, the thing is, like, it's true. Like, he's not the kind of point guard type guy that somebody like Doncic is, but he also has this ability to work without the ball in a very effective way. And that's kind of like why I went with the Iguodala. It's like he just like knows. Right. So that's why I think he's like I could see him really fitting where like I could see him passing to Curry, like Curry's like going this way, going that way, going behind screens, going this way, and he's able to find him. And then I also see like similarly, like if you've got Draymond Green and Abdia bad shooting playing together, I can see him like finding the right second to cut, and then like also being able to cut and then pass on to somebody else, like Green to Avdia to Curry in the corner, bang, right? Like something like just like that kind of that, and it's partly an energetic thing. So like role wise, I see him, he's a bench. I see him being a bench player. Um, I really like the idea of him in like hybrid bench lineups. So if you've got like a hybrid starter bench lineup, like something where he's playing with like Wiggins and Thompson and a backup point guard and like a backup center or Chris. So he's playing at like the four, and I could actually see him being like an initiator and an instigator in that offense, right? Um, so I think like that, like him playing alongside Green, less exciting. I could still see it working, particularly if he can shoot, and him playing alongside Pascal, less exciting, unless Pascal figures out how to shoot threes, in which case that would be pretty exciting. Um, but him playing alongside people like Wiggins and Thompson, who are people that are like have a lot of like um star power, skill, ability, but don't necessarily need to command the ball. He could be a really interesting option there, both as like a catch the ball and redistribute, or as like a actually like run the pick and roll as the ball handler. Um, so I want to close my argument here with just a observation of the latest news. Have you guys heard that he's playing in Israel for the Maccabi? Maccabi's restarting. Have you guys heard that yet or no?
I don't know.
So that's happening, and I think that's gonna affect his stock because I think it's gonna push his stock up a bit. Um, which I think means that potentially, I think that happening, his stock going up if it does go up, is kind of good for the Warriors either way. Because like again, I would be okay with them drafting him at 4 or 5, just like straight up. I think, um, but I would also be okay with like the Hawks drafting him at 3, and then that pushes like a Kongwu or Wiseman or whatever further down the line, right? So then the Warriors have more of a chance of like trading with the Knicks and getting a Kongwu at 6 or something, right? So like I think that's a pretty cool option. Um, but I think so like I think Avdia, he's just very with it to me, and he really wants to be good, and that's a big part of it. And, like he wrote this email to ESPN about like how he's like going to stay and win a championship, and like I guess they had like inter squad scrimmage a couple like a week ago or whatever, where he scored like 18 points, and I was like, okay, cool. But then they just did their first game, and it was against a bad opponent, but he was the best player, like clearly. Scored 23 points, 7 rebounds, had 5 assists. They destroyed the other team who was, like from the south part of um, Tel Aviv or whatever. But he was 2 for 3 from he was 2 for 3 from three. He was 5 of 6 from two, and he was 7 of 8 from the free throw line. I think
Okay, we're not taking stats from him crushing Israeli league, but you've totally convinced me to check him out again.
so. Can I?
Because I do like how you're describing him, how he could fit in on the Warriors.
So can I close with just his highlights from that game?
Sure,
Okay,
sure. Highlights are better than stats.
and then we'll pass it on to Al for the final round. Hold on. I'm gonna leave the audio off for that. So I'll just talk if necessary. Let's see here. So can you guys see it?
Not yet, but I bet it's gonna kick in.
Yeah.
Al, do you see it?
Not yet.
Al, you see it though? Al?
I see it. But it's not funny.
I went back. Did you guys not see it at all?
No.
Yeah. I see a frozen.
Am I frozen?
I'm
Okay.
back to seeing the normal screen. With
Right.
you talking.
I'm gonna try one. Jesus Christ. All right. I'm gonna try one more time, okay?
Yeah. Both of you guys are frozen. Okay.
Niles, can you see?
Nope.
Okay, so I think it's on my end then, I guess. Um, I don't really know what to do other than end the meeting, which kind of sucks. Yeah. Can you see me, Nina? Can you see me talking now?
Yeah.
Al, Al, can you see me talking?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can see both of you.
So I'm going to try one more time here. All right. I'm just going to share the whole screen. All right. Can you see the whole screen?
No, it's changed. Like I can't see you anymore or Al. I'm just at the top of my Zoom.
Yeah.
But then, and it says you've started sharing, but I don't see anything.
I
Al,
can see it.
you can see it?
Mhm.
Okay, then I'm just going to go with it then, okay? So here's Avdia's highlights really quickly. Let's let's get some sound here.
I'll play by play. I'll color commentate. The ball from the X. I'm assuming you shot it. Can you guys see me or hear me?
I can hear
Hello?
you. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Al.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think it works.
it didn't work?
You know, I'm seeing freeze frames, but nothing.
Okay. So I guess we just have a terrible connection. Do you want me to end the meeting and restart a meeting, or should we just keep going?
No, I think I should come to an end of the meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So
Um,
me too.
anyway, that's my pitch for Avdia.
I definitely want to check out some of the
Yeah. Okay.
highlights.
Al, number 3, it's all you.
I'll just go real quick. Yeah, my third is to limited offense. Can you hear me?
No, you're breaking up.
Okay. How about now?
Sure.
It's,
Can you hear me?
Hey guys,
yeah, it's
I
not
think
working.
we should just call it for tonight. We
Yeah.
should just call it for tonight and then rejoin for another evening
I agree.
because it's
Good.
chopping up so
Maybe
hard.
next one we'll do a kind of cleaner version of our draft. Yeah.
I
We'll
think
see.
we
To
need
be determined.
to figure out how to have better connection. Like
Yeah,
it's
I could try being in another room. Oh, but so just in closing though, Al, are you still you're gonna do Chris Dunn was your third guy?
Yeah, he was just my third guy.
it doesn't work.
No, well, Jamie, is it because he's a restricted free agent?
Yeah.
So he's mid-level, if anything, which is a
Yeah.
possibility, I think.
Yeah, mid-level I like him at the mid-level if you can get him, but it doesn't the whole trade scenario doesn't work.
Oh, you can't do a sign trade.
No,
No, because then they get
absolutely
hard
not.
capped again.
Absolutely not.
They basically they can't financially.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would be at the mid-level. I'd be interested in Dunn.
Yeah, mid-level super into it.
Okay.
But so let me just in closing is something for you guys to think about. My third guy was Will Barton
Uh-huh.
for the Nuggets,
Yeah.
using the trade exemption. And basically, what I was thinking about was some team or multiple teams is going to really want to get off money. And I think that's a great way the Warriors can use that exemption. Of like that, there's some team maybe they'll give the Warriors a pick and a player who's not so good. Like if I was the Warriors, Olynyk and the Heat's pick, I think I would take, but I wouldn't take just Olynyk.
Yeah.
A team should have to pay for that space.
I love that idea.
But to me, Barton's maybe someone I'd be happy to just take off the Nuggets' hands if they wanted to save money. Because I think he's a really dynamic scorer and he's long enough that he can sometimes play the 3.
Yeah.
He's creative with the ball.
Like
So
their second best player, like offensive player, I think keep him away, right?
Murray is their second player, and they're already paying Harris, and they're really high on Porter. They probably won't give him away, but I think there's a chance. Their ownership has a history of being really cheap, and they've got Porter in the pipeline, and they've got Torrey Craig, who's really good at D, already playing that position. And Barton's always, in my opinion, seems really talented, but was always really overmatched as a defensive three.
Yeah.
So he has limitations, but I think he's really talented.
So,
What is he get for giving us those restricted guys? They had Washoe and Gomez in the league easily.
Yeah, the fact that they traded away Beasley makes it seem more likely that they'll want to keep Barton. But
okay, so great. That's good. Barton's awesome. In closing, I have something to say. This is like this. Apart from me talking too much about Avdia, this was a great basketball conversation, I thought, and a great choice by you, Al. Like in terms of how to structure the conversation. But if we're gonna do anything podcasty, we have to get different connections. Like it just doesn't work. So I would say that since we actually see each other anyway, like with social distancing and stuff, better to like all come to my house, sit around a table. Al can sit on one end of the table if he wants or whatever. But like better to do that than to do this because it's just like if we're just doing it for ourselves, then it's fine, I guess. But if we have any if we have any idea of this being online, we have to do it totally different. So
I think that's a good point. It would be fun to get together too. So.
yeah. So anyway, that's all. So
Yeah.
cool. Okay.
Yeah, good chat.
Good chat. Danny Avdia.
Hopefully see you guys soon.
Yeah. Night.
All right. Good night.
Night, Al.
Bye.